Tonight on Let It Rip.
Alrighty, Virginia, we won this thing!
It's a political shockwave as Republicans win big in deep blue Virginia and Democrats barely win in New Jersey. Is it a sign of what might happen across the country next year? But first,
we're going to keep working until we build this city that's one Detroit for all of us. Thank you, Detroit.
it's 4 more years for Mike Duggan in Detroit, who will soon be working with a city council made up of 6 new members. Time to let it rip on the panel tonight. A lineup of the usual suspects. Political insider, media mogul, and co-host of the No BS News podcast, Karen Dumas is back, along with the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, Republican Tori Sachs, plus the Democratic consultant and public relations guru we all know, Greg Bowens, the chairman of the Oakland County Republican Party, Andrew Rocky Wichkowski, and as always, attorney, anchor, reporter who covers it all, Charlie Langton. All right, let's touch first on the history-making results from last night. Abdullah Hammoud is elected the first Arab American, first Muslim mayor in the city of Dearborn in its history. Now think about this. Just a few decades ago, a racist named Orville Hubbard made his career pledging to keep Dearborn lily white. And look at what we have now. Panel, what do you think?
I think it's amazing.
It was amazing.
Rolling over in his grave.
But give Mr. Hammoud, Mayor Hammoud, some credit. He worked hard, and I think it is groundbreaking. Not only a Muslim there, but Hamtramck, Dearborn Heights, and other areas. I mean, we're talking about people who work real hard. They're smart, and oh yes, they happen to be Muslim or another something different. Give them credit. I think this is amazing.
Sure, but also let's look at the homogeneous makeup of those communities. Once Hamtramck, you had to have an SKI like my last name to be the mayor of Hamtramck. Now, the population of Hamtramck is more Bengali and Yemeni, so it would make sense that there would be somebody elected that would represent that community. Just like in Dearborn, where Mayor Hammoud took on, let's face it, he took on a powerhouse of a gentleman named Gary Warnchak, who represented that area in the State House, as well as in the Wayne County Commission, and the chairman. He was the chairman of the Wayne County Commission, both as a Republican and as a Democrat. But the communities of interest, and this is something that we talk about in that redistricting commission, the communities of interest were more Arabic, more Muslim, so they supported people that represented their viewpoint.
Well, and I think that's key, just as Rocky said. I mean, we certainly need leadership that represents the constituency. And I think that we've seen that reflected there. We don't necessarily see that reflected here in Detroit, but I do see that in other areas. And I think that that's important when you think about constituents, their concerns, and the person that they need to champion for their communities.
When you think about Hamtramck, we have a liberal longtime mayor in Hamtramck, Karen Majewski, beaten by an immigrant from Yemen, a healthcare worker, Amir Ghalib. That's the first time in a century that someone who is non-Polish is going to lead that city.
Yeah, but Huel, Hamtramck's no longer Polish. You look at the population of what was called once Pole Town, where every single elected member used to be a Polish name. That's not Polish anymore. Now the Poles moved out to Troy, Rochester Hills, Shelby, Utica, Washington Township, Warren, Sterling Heights, and that's now where Pole Town and Chaldeans live and Italians. But here's the great part about America. We are the melting pot. It shouldn't matter if we've got an Arab or a Black or a Polish person representing you. It should matter about the content of our politicians, the character of our politicians.
Spoken like a true politician.
What's that?
Spoken like a true politician.
No, just spoken like someone that understands.
But I think for a long time, people were afraid to run. And they're not afraid to run anymore. And if you're Muslim or Arabic or for a long time, I think people were saying, I can never win, despite the fact that the population was changing. And now we have these people who actually work their way up. I think Hammoud is an amazing person. We all know him, and I think that he worked himself up from state rep, but he worked. And again, when the times change, you have to step out and start leading. And if it's in your population, you lead your population. That's
But
it.
people are also looking at people that represent their interests. These are not necessarily lifelong politicians. Certainly, he did have some experience, but people that resonate with the concerns of the average citizen. We see people moving away from party loyalty, and they are looking at the person. So, maybe they are putting race and culture aside and looking at the person to see just how well they can represent their interests and concerns.
Well, Karen, to that end, I think this is wonderful. I think it just says something good about the country. But you look at what's happened in Boston. The new mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, the first Asian woman to serve as that city's top executive, also a person of color. The new mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, a former NYPD captain, the second Black man to hold the job leading the country's biggest city. I think that speaks volumes about maybe the kind of country we're becoming.
Yeah, but Huel, more importantly, you missed one very blaring one that very few news outlets are actually talking about. And that is the new Attorney General of Virginia, a Black female Republican, who's now the new Attorney General of a state like Virginia. That would have never seen that. So are we really coming together as Americans? I think we are. We had a Black president. No, who cares about where you come from or what you are? Let's care more about what you stand for and what you can provide the citizens and what you will do for our children and our country's future.
Rocky's arguing for a post-racial America, and I wish that was true. I hope that is true. We all strive for it to be true. And I think we still have a long ways to go. I mean, I think Dearborn is a good example of the kind of progress that we made. They're not a majority Muslim city. Certainly the population there is probably about 40%, something like that. And yet they were able to elect an Arabic mayor. So, I mean, it's that 40% number seems kind of like magical when you're talking about redistricting and stuff like that. And that's the number that seems to be stuck here in Michigan when we talk about creating these new districts and whether or not Black and brown people will be able to have more representation in the state legislature. It's a very interesting dynamic.
And Greg, this is probably one of the first times we will again agree wholeheartedly, because I concur with you. I think this redistricting commission, I know it's a separate subject, but has completely turned their back on the Black and brown community, especially the urban communities.
And look, then there's Mike Duggan. There's Mike Duggan, an easy victory over challenging Anthony Adams, winning a third term. There are more Blacks than whites in the city of Detroit, but Mike Duggan won easily. What does that tell you?
Well, I mean, and that's an interesting thing because, proposals are also passed. And then I just learned today there's another organization that has set up shop to try to fight for equal housing and fair housing for Black people. And it feels very odd to me for Black people in a predominantly Black city to still be asking for opportunity and access and equality. And it's not reflected in leadership. And this isn't necessarily about race, but this is about what resonates with people. Now, why is that happening? I don't know. That's a $2 million question. But this is a person, and I know this is after the fact. We should be talking about how we move forward. And certainly I'm willing for that as well. But this is a person that didn't live here, that had a history as the prosecutor of locking up people in the city of Detroit, not a business here, not a presence here. How did that happen? That's a question that a lot of people ask, but we're still talking about blight, parks, and jobs that are going to be offered to Detroiters in a third term. We're not talking about quality of life issues. We're not talking about infrastructure issues. We're not talking about, the pension obligation payments that are going to set the city back. There are a lot of things that have just been pushed under the rug, and everybody seems to be okay with it.
And Karen, you bring up a very valid point.
The city council is going to have 6 new faces, though. I want to get into this, though. I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to mention the city council. 6 new faces there, including Fred Durhall, Coleman Young II, Letitia Johnson, Gabriela Santiago Romero, Mary Waters, Angela Calloway, James Tate, Scott Benson, Mary Sheffield, all reelected. But the city council is changing more so than the mayor's office. What does that mean for the future of the city? Greg, you represented one candidate who was running for city council. What happened?
Man, that's a good question. Emma Ulrich, came out like gangbusters in the beginning, and I came to the campaign late. At the same time, you got to wonder, what was propelling that? I mean, clearly people don't have a problem voting for somebody white. I mean, as you point out, they elected Mike Duggan to a third term. Unbelievable. Only Coleman Young has done that. And yet, couldn't clear the hurdle here in the district race. There were lots of different things that were unfolding there. And there were other surprises. McAllister, lost his seat. He looked like a sure bet. But he, lost on that one too. And then Janae Ayers, that we all saw, who was, fairly popular person, not coming in the top two. So there've been some surprises. I always say election day is either like Christmas. It's Christmas for some and Halloween for others. Like, oh.
But what's also interesting, one of the things that I wanted to add on to what Karen was saying earlier, Huel, and Greg, is that sometimes it also is about who's got the most money and who's willing to work the hardest as well. And Mayor Duggan, remember, Mayor Duggan came in, you were absolutely right, Karen, with everything you said about Mayor Duggan, but he came in and he raised a boatload of cash and took on the establishment with money. Sometimes you win with money, sometimes you win with brawn and hard work. And if
it's no secret. I mean,
you can't get the money without
he has a level of political acumen. Remember, he was the kingmaker before he was king. He doesn't know the rules.
That's right.
He wrote the book. So I'm not trivializing that at all. I mean, and those things have worked to his advantage. But for ML, Greg, I don't think it was because he was white. I just think that, Letitia had a better connection with the community. I think that resonated with voters.
But for an incumbent to lose, in some ways, there has to be something wrong. There's got to be the outrage by the electorate. And there was nothing outrageous here. Mike Duggan, for the most part, did a pretty good job. By many measures, did a great job. There was nothing that he did that would get people to come out and say, I want to remove this guy.
Not even his girlfriend getting money on the city coffers, the question about the land bank, the demolition.
Voters didn't care.
But I'm saying we didn't hear anything about that. That was never brought up. I mean, so.
Oh, you mean in the campaign?
People only know what they're told. And if in fact it's quiet and nobody's actually digging deep, then it just kind of glosses over. People were asking, this doesn't even really feel like a campaign season. You didn't really hear a lot of ads. We just saw television ads like in the past couple of days. Billboards were very, kind of just, oh, hey, guess what? We did 2,000 alleys. It was very low key. And I think that was by design.
Well, that's
the one
challenge.
All right.
Look, he's got to get out there and work
right now. We have to take a break right now. But when we come back, we're going to look at two key races for governor and the shockwaves they're having across the country right now as Let It Rip continues. Stay with us. Two big races sending shockwaves across the country tonight. Republican Glenn Youngkin beating Democrat Terry McAuliffe for the governor's seat in Virginia. And in New Jersey, Democratic Governor Phil Murphy barely defeating his Republican challenger just a year ago now. Joe Biden won both states by double digits. Tori, what does this mean?
Look, I think it's a big win for parents. I think it's a big win for the country. I think voters in Virginia and to some extent New Jersey last night really rejected the effort that's been going on by Democrats for many years to divide us. I think there's a lot of things that we can come together on. Joe Biden won Virginia by 10 points. Youngkin won by 2 points last night. So that's a 12-point swing in less than a year. And he really ran on issues like making sure parents have the resources they need to make sure their kids get the education that they deserve. And for whatever reason, Democrats in this country, and we all know it's the teachers union, that's the reason, are so focused on funding the teachers unions that they're not focused on making sure our kids have the resources that they need to learn. And I think we're going to see that play out in Michigan. And if I was Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, Dana Nessel, Haley Stevens, Alyssa Slotkin, I would be looking to either leave my party, leave them behind on these issues that are dividing us, or find a new job, because Republicans are going to have a wave in 2022. And
Tori, I got to tell you, that's wishful thinking, because that same party is the same party that they raise a ton of money from. And what we've seen, especially listening to the media press clippings this morning and even this afternoon, it seems like the Democrats woke up and hit the snooze button and went back to sleep, because we're hearing the same old tired rhetoric of the same old policies that got them in this situation. And instead of fixing the strategy, they're doubling down on the same CRT problems.
Well, meanwhile, guys, Trump is trying to claim credit tonight, but in Virginia, Youngkin accepted Trump's endorsement, but he did not invite Trump to campaign with him. So does this mean that you can have a Republican reject Trump and still win? And is that the way to win here in Michigan?
That's a good step. Might be a good strategy. It's not only the governor's race, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and the legislature, as I understand it, the House in Virginia as well, all were Republicans. So it's not just the top of the ticket, which we focus on, but obviously somewhere down the line, people are resonating, and they, for some reason, they didn't want to vote Democrat. I would think that would be a little worrisome if I was a Democrat right now.
And by the way, you keep talking about Trump. It's the America First policies. It's the policies that President Trump brought in front of America, closing borders, putting kids first, putting America first, making our military strong, making our economy strong, and gas prices back to $1.90 a gallon. That's what people voted for, the American First policies that President Trump gave us.
Well, Biden's poll numbers are falling, guys. What does that mean for his agenda? Does that mean he can get anything now done in Washington?
Well, it hasn't even really been a year yet since he's been in office, and you usually burn a lot of your political capital in the beginning in order to get things done and then work to get it back later. I'm really surprised at some of the coded language that's coming from our friends on the right here. Make sure parents have all the tools they need for their students, and Rocky throwing out CRT, critical race theory as a buzzword out there. These are the kinds of things that are divisive and that we need to be able to move past. Nobody's teaching critical race theory in schools. We know that. And that's just code word for racism. It's just
no,
ridiculous.
I disagree completely.
Rocky,
Hold on.
No, Rocky,
You
no.
can say that.
No.
You can't throw that out here. You can't throw that out.
CRT. Nobody on this panel was talking about CRT. Nobody was saying anything about it being an issue. You brought it up.
You have a big issue in Virginia.
Real slickly.
Hey, Greg, education is a big issue in Detroit. It's a big issue in the rural areas, and it's a big issue in suburban areas.
Education has been a big issue in relationship to the pandemic.
Suburban parents, all parents are going to be voting Republican. There's only one party right now who wants to give parents choices, who wants to make sure that children actually get to learn something, and that's Republicans, and that's what people voted for.
The only thing Republicans want to do is put kids in the classrooms without masks and play Russian roulette with them. You know, we've been dealing with public education for a long time, and I think that
and it's been failing, Greg, and people are tired of it.
Complicated by the pandemic, you know this, and the biggest issues that you guys are throwing around out there is this fake issue of critical race theory and masking in school. Thank God we have vaccines now, but you guys are going to push back on that, saying they don't need to be getting vaccinated.
Yeah,
so.
That's ridiculous, and I got to tell you that it's very reckless.
Ridiculous.
It's very reckless of what you're saying, Greg. And you got to stop watching MSNBC. You got to turn off MSNBC.
Double down on that, Greg, and you're going to lose by 20 points next year.
You got to stop watching Fox and believing all that.
Keep saying what you're saying, and it's going to be a big, huge victory for the Republicans next year.
You know what? You know what's
exactly,
going to happen?
Rocky.
But
it
won't
be that way.
You know that, Brad, Hispanics voted for Republicans in Virginia, over 50%. This is not a race issue.
Yeah,
this is
that was one. You know what that was saying
is that wait a minute. Suburban swing voters were the key in Virginia, New Jersey. They will likely be the key in Michigan a year from now. So what does that mean for the race? Does it mean that James Craig has to go down to Mar-a-Lago and get the endorsement for Donald Trump to win? Does it mean that critical race theory will play a role in who becomes the next governor of this state?
What do you think? What Tori said.
But understand this. Hold on. Because this was the issue in Virginia. You had people saying critical race theory, and they don't know what critical race theory is. It's an academic framework that's taught in law school and graduate school about the systemic pillars of racism.
And it's brought into high schools.
Well, no, it's not, Rocky. No, it's not. No, listen, when people start talking about the realities that surround racism and oppression that continue to exist in this country, then they want to throw it under critical race theory. What it is real American history. And people don't want to acknowledge that. And the fact that it continues to hold people of color back in this country, Black and brown people, every day. So race is a very difficult thing. It's a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. But talking about race isn't racist. It's reality.
You know what, Karen, let's go ahead, Tori. Sorry.
no one's saying not to talk about race, right? I think that there's a lot of people who agree that race is an issue, and maybe we need to talk about it. And adults can have those conversations. People don't want their kids indoctrinated. Look, and what happened in Virginia is exactly what's happening right now. People who don't have children in school are telling people like me who have children in school, telling a lot of suburban parents what's being taught. Hey, guess what? We spent the last year watching what our kids were learning, and you're wrong. And all we're saying is we don't want kids to be that they have to be divided. We want to be able to have
these reparations on the ballot here in Detroit.
Hold on. So let me just finish.
Is discussed.
The lieutenant governor of Virginia is a Republican, the newly elected yesterday, is a Black woman immigrant from Jamaica. She won a majority of the votes. She is now the first woman lieutenant governor. And also the attorney general is Cuban, right? All these people won. This is the Democrat message of dividing us is a loser. And the more they continue it, the more Republicans are going to win.
That's baloney. You know what she doesn't want to add to that? Wait, you know what makes that so remarkable and amazing that these folks won in Virginia is the history part that you don't want to talk about, which is Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy that led a rebellion against the United States to try and keep slavery. Now that you don't want that part taught.
No, we'd love to because it's the Republican Party, the free.
Absolutely. Those are things I could tell. I was like 6-year-old. Don't tell my 6-year-old she's an oppressor.
Black students.
You know what else is remarkable?
Black students. Hold on, Greg. Black students were taught.
No, you hold on. You keep talking. What else is remarkable?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, you keep talking. No, not you, Karen. Go ahead.
One at a time. All right, everybody gets 30 seconds. Go, Greg. 30 seconds. That's it. 30. Go.
A year from now, things are going to look a lot different. For sure, Democrats have a long road to hoe, but that's what happens when you got the top job in the United States.
Karen.
Party aside, we need to start looking at who people are, not what color they are, but we also have to take a very hard, realistic, and candid look at who we are as a country, acknowledge our past cultural contributions and mistakes, and figure out how we correct them and move forward.
Tori.
It's going to be a great year for Republicans. Look, if we focus on issues like education, making sure that students have access to learn, no matter where you live or what you do, that you're not locked out of your school, that the governor isn't vetoing money for your kids to have reading scholarships. Those are the issues that are going to matter. And at the end of the day, the prices are high and it's Biden's fault. People like Whitmer have enabled that. And you're going to see those pocketbook issues really hit us and help Republicans.
Rocky.
Greg, you're absolutely right. Leadership is tough, but doing the right thing isn't. And that is making sure that inflation is low, gas prices are low, that our nation is protected, that our borders are secure. And there's only one party that stands with parents and securing the border and making sure that our economy is vibrant, which we saw the last 4 years. And that's the Republican Party. And that's why you're seeing a lot more African Americans come across the aisle and join the Republican Party.
Charlie,
listen, I think we're missing a fundamental issue here. Voter turnout. We can discuss all these issues, but if 19% of the people vote in Detroit, what are we doing here? We've got to make it easier for people to vote, encourage them to vote, and really hammer home from both parties the necessity to get out and vote. Then the opinions mean something. I think this was atrocious. The turnout in this election, I hope it doesn't occur again.
Charlie Langton, the voice of reason and truth. All right, panel. Thank you for your comments and insights. Hopefully, we'll have time for final thoughts. Stay with us. Time for final thoughts from our panel. They can say anything they want to in 15 seconds, beginning with Tori. Tori, go.
Last night, the radical left agenda was defeated. The defund the police movement was defeated in Minneapolis. A socialist was defeated in Buffalo. These are the kind of things that I'm glad to see in our country, and I hope continue here in Michigan.
Greg.
For the first time since 1977, a Democrat has won back-to-back in New Jersey as governor. And I think that we're going to see more of that and less of this other stuff that these folks are talking about.
Rocky.
I'm only encouraging people to get out and vote. It's the largest enterprise that we should all be participating in. And if you're looking for more freedom, better economic opportunity, and more parental involvement in schools, I encourage you to check out the Oakland County Republican Party at oaklandgop.org.
Karen.
at some point, we got to start holding people accountable. We continue to talk about the same issues that we've been talking about for decades. And at the end of the day, not very much has changed. So we need to look at people. We need to not look at the party. We need to be honest. We need to be candid. And we need to figure out how we can work together to get to a better common place.
Charlie.
We have 6 new people on the Detroit City Council. I want to see some real things happen. Voter apathy, though, is a terrible, terrible thing. We've got to change that. So work in Detroit and people get out and vote.
We thank you all for your comments, and we thank you for watching this edition of Let It Rip.